Okay, so welcome to hard pointing part 2. So in the previous tutorial we covered the basics, so creating phaser arrays, creating torpedo launchers, and creating pulse phaser emitters. But as we saw in the previous tutorial, the phaser emitters were ridiculously oversized. It was just a default, I think, was created, and it's made for the appearance on larger ships and things like that. The torpedoes, again, that you would fire from a small ship are going to be obviously much smaller than a standard sized torpedo. And same with the pulse phasers. The pulses themselves need to be smaller. So this gets a little bit more involved. We're going to get into some script editing and some script creation. So all of the scripts that control weapons and effects are located if you go to the root directory of your NanoFX folder. And under graphics, NanoFX, and here we are. So scripts. So these are all the script files that control how everything operates. As far as the weapons, the navigation lights are also a hard point, so they're listed under here. And then if you go back under the graphics, this is where all of the actual imagery is referenced. So if you go under one, for instance, so here's one of the explosion effects. So there it is. So if we go under the scripts and we go under Fed Phaser, right here, there's going to be one that matches that under the graphics. It's going to be called Fed Phaser, and there it is. If we go back to scripts, so we know that when we created the phasers on this shuttle, we referenced the Fed Phaser script. So if we go under phasers, there it is, Fed Phaser. But we know that the default phaser size was way too big. The phaser strip, the phaser beam was like half the width of the ship, and the point of light that it creates when it's firing was almost encompassing the whole ship. Way too much. So we're going to create, and I've already done so, a much smaller scale phaser effect. And so what we're going to do is just go to Fed Phaser, copy it, and paste it right back into the same directory, and you're going to get something called Fed Phaser copy. Just rename that to, what did I name mine? I named mine Shuttle Phaser. So rename the file that you just pasted to Shuttle Phaser and open it. And yours, because you just copied, is going to look like this. It's going to have the ID, the color, the line width, modulate speed, the texture path, the sound that it's going to reference, and the FX path. And the FX path contains the point light, and it also contains the damage amount and some other information too. So obviously the line width 1.2 is overkill. So in mine, under my shuttle phaser, I've reduced the line width to 0.3. So that's pretty much all we're going to do. Just change that to 0.3 and save it and close. So now you've got a shuttle phaser effects file like that. There's one more file that we need to duplicate and rename, and that is phaser burst. And there it is there. So that's responsible for the point light and how big the texture is that creates that originating kind of point of light. So copy phaser burst and paste it back into the directory and rename it shuttle burst. So when you do that, under shuttle burst, you're going to have all of these settings. And what you're going to want to change them to, there's only a couple here that we're going to change. The damage amount, I reduced a little bit because obviously it's a less powerful phaser. It's on a shuttle. It's not going to be able to emit the same amount of power. I bumped that down to 0.25. And the effects here, I've changed this as well. The original size was 0.8. And that's just that blob of light that appears at the originating point of the phaser. It's way too big. I bumped that down to 0.3. And that's pretty much it, if I'm not mistaken. That's the only things that you need to modify. So if we go back, we've got a shuttle burst file and a shuttle phaser fire. Under shuttle phaser, it's still referencing the phaser burst. You need to rename it to shuttle burst to match the file that we just created. So rename that FX path to shuttle burst and save it. So go back into your hardpoint properties, go to your phasers, and under the FX script, we're going to name it shuttle phaser to match the one that we created, and for the starboard as well. Shuttle phaser. Make sure you get them named properly, otherwise you'll just get errors and your phasers won't fire. Okay, so let's go back into the viewer here. Let's load up another target here, and using your XY coordinates, instead of having to move my ship around, let's just make this 500. That's the X load object. So it should be, there it is. So it's 5 kilometers away, because the decimal points are always shifted 1 in the coordinates. So as you can see here, its distance is 577. So if you were to add one more 0 to that, it's actually 5,770 meters, or 5 kilometers, 5.7 kilometers. So your weapons will work. The phasers work up to 1,000 or 10 kilometers, and the photon torpedoes have to be closer. I think it's about 800 or 900 or 8 or 9 kilometers, and the pulse weapons have to be, I think, even a little bit closer, like 700. So from this distance, we should still be able to use our weapons. We're only about half the distance of the weapons capabilities. So we'll go to red alert to power up our weapons, and let's just move our view around just a little bit here so we can see what's going to happen here. So in the stationary view, your mouse buttons don't click, click, click. They don't actually activate the weapons. You have to rely on the keyboard. So F for phasers, V for pulse weapons, spacebar for torpedoes. So there's the ship, and we're going to go ahead and fire our phaser. So as you can see, we've reduced the line width, and we've reduced that point of light there, so it's obviously not ridiculously oversized compared to the ship. So if we just back up, so much more reasonable. And now that you know how to do it, you can tweak it to whatever you like. This is a smaller shuttle. I actually set that shuttle stuff for a larger shuttle. For this one, you might want to create a new script and call it Type 9 Phaser and Type 9 Burst, and create your own sizes for the burst and the phaser width, and of course the damage as well. So you've probably noticed as I scrolled through my effects, I have a lot of files that you might not. I've created a lot of my own, like card mega phaser for the Cardassian, Galore, and Keldon. They have a pretty heavy phaser array that's located in the lower front of the ship. So that is a short burst firing phaser, but it delivers a lot of damage. I've also created Type 12 phasers for my Sovereign model. So they're it creates a lot more damage, and I've changed the color and stuff just a little bit. The next thing we want to do, now that we have the phasers corrected for size and scale for this ship, we want to create, and I haven't even done this yet, I don't think, no, is create torpedoes that are scaled down to the proper size. So again, this is going to be editing existing scripts. So the default Federation Photon script is just Fed Photon. So copy and Control V to paste it in there. And we're just going to rename this one Shuttle photon. So we've just copied and pasted the fed photon, renamed it shuttle photon. And if we open that up, it's going to have all the information. Unlike the phaser, everything's located in here. The damage amount, the size of the weapon, the speed that it travels, yada yada yada. So the damage amount we want to reduce because this is a micro torpedo. So we're going to bump this down to 60. The life is how long the torpedo is going to last after you fire it. I'm not sure what that is. I guess it could be seconds. But we'll just leave that as is. The speed stuff you can just keep the same. So the size start and size end. This is set for standard size torpedo. We actually want to reduce that down quite a bit. So the size start, let's just go 0.5. And the size end, you can either keep that the same. It really isn't going to change anything. It's such a small thing anyways, and it travels so quickly you're not going to notice the difference. Okay. So that's it. So in this instance, we're going to keep the FX path to the fed torp because this script works a little bit different than the phaser script. We want to maintain this here because all the information for the texture, damage, and everything, like I said earlier, is contained in this one file. And we want to make sure that it can reference the proper texture file so that we can see the torpedo. And that should be pretty much it. This again is where you would change the color of the torpedo. So if we wanted to make the torpedo green for Romulan, or a deeper, brighter red for Klingon, or green for Klingon, you would do so using RGB values in the color fields here. The point light is the light that the torpedo casts, same as the deferred glows on the ship. So file, save. So we're going to have to reload the texture, reload the model here. So Federation Shuttles Type 9, player ship. Okay, let's go ahead. I guess we're going to have to go to red alert. Oops. So as you can see there's a good example of how the phasers work now that we've bumped them out from the model a little bit. They don't interfere with being able to fire through the phaser now that, or the pylon now that they're out a little bit from the ship. They fire a little bit more realistically. Obviously this one isn't firing because in order to hit the ship, as you can see here, the phaser would have to intersect through the pylon, and it won't do that. But if we turn just a little bit, now it will. Let's go into hardpoint properties. We need to update the model itself with the new script. So under torpedo launchers, forward, see we still got the old one, which is fed photon. We want to change that to shuttle photon, and save. It's going to reload the texture, or the model, excuse me. Okay, so let's go and fire another torpedo. Much better. So see how much smaller the torpedo is. And again, you can just keep going down and down if you want to decrease the size, or if you want to increase the size, just change that the size in the script. Oh, one more thing. So we've got the phaser scaled and the torpedoes scaled. The next thing we want to do is scale the pulse. They're obviously way too big compared to the ship, and that's how powerful they are. So we go into our scripts and find fed pulse and copy and paste that. And you can call this whatever you want. You can call it shuttle pulse or small pulse or whatever. We'll call this one shuttle pulse. And it's set up the same way as a torpedo script is. Everything's contained here. So the only thing we want to change is the size. So let's bump this down to 1. And that's it. File, save. And again, go back to the hardpoint properties of the model. Under weapons, pulse weapons, port, and call this one shuttle pulse, because that's the name of the script, and do the same for the other side, shuttle pulse. Save. It's going to reload, and we're ready to shoot. So you're probably not going to see a big difference here, but let's see what happens. Yeah, that's nice. So they're a little bit smaller. And one other just quick thing we'll just show here is, as you know, we've created a photon torpedo tube right here. On the bottom, just for the tutorial's sake, let's create a quantum turret. So this is where we're going to use the pulse weapons again, and we're just going to delete the old pulse weapons because we don't want those in there. So it's pretty limited in what you can do. Obviously, if you had pulse phasers and a quantum turret set up to be a pulse weapon, then they would all fire together, and you don't want that. We want our pulse weapon to be a quantum turret. So the direction is 0. The fire rate, we know the quantum torpedo launcher on the Sovereign is pretty quick, so we'll make it 0.3 seconds between pulses, and we'll set this to 4. So the FX script, we're just going to go fed quantum. And if you don't have that script, you can create it by just copy pasting your fed photon script, changing the colors and the damage amount, etc. in the effects file. So here we have fed quantum. I'm pretty sure this came with the viewer. The speed is a little bit faster than a torpedo. The damage amount is double that. And the color here that it is, and the deferred glow, the deferred light that it creates there. So fed quantum, it's going to be able to fire 4 quantum torpedoes, and we'll just change the recharge to 20 seconds, and the fire rate is 0.3 seconds between torpedoes, and the direction is 0, so straight ahead. So we now have a quantum torpedo launcher on this shuttle. So let's bring our weapons online. So as you can see, we can't immediately fire our weapons, or at least phasers, until they load. Torpedoes pretty much load immediately when you go to red alert. Phasers do have to load to that minimum. So let's stop there. So we can fire our normal torpedo. We have 2 of those. And we should be able to fire our quantum torpedoes now. And there we go, by using the V key or the middle mouse button, the same as you would pulse weapons. You can set the quantum torpedoes to just a regular type torpedo. So if we go into our hardpoint properties, go under torpedo launchers, and our existing launcher, we can actually change that to fed quantum. Close that. So now our old torpedo launcher, which was, remember, was up in the deflector sensor array, or whatever you want to call this little divot here, is now a quantum torpedo. So it's going to be controlled by the left mouse button or the spacebar button, and it's going to have the same, the only thing I did was change the script, so it's going to contain the same, 2 torpedoes, 15-second reload time, and a slow fire rate of 1 second between torpedoes. So let's go ahead and try that. There we go. So we've got a regular quantum torpedo tube, and we've also got a quantum turret set up as a pulse weapon. Okay, so that definitely wraps up the tutorial. So we've gone, like I said, from basically a bridge commander model with no bells and whistles to a fully decked out and textured model that looks really good in NanoFX. One quick tip: when you're downloading models from bridge commander files, when you're searching for a particular ship, like I generally just type in Galaxy or Sovereign, set your results to the file size. You want to organize your results by file size and descending, and that'll give you the results with the highest file sizes. I generally find, obviously, the higher the file size of the model that we download, you're going to get higher textures. You're going to get a higher poly count model, so it's generally going to look a lot better. Just quickly, I'll show you the Sovereign model that I converted. This is a collaborative effort, so I'm not fully responsible. Know who was responsible for the overall creation of this. I think it's CG sovereign or the CR sovereign, I can't remember, but there's other people responsible for like the textures and things like that. But it's a pretty fairly high model, high poly model. It's got a lot of extra details, like the bridges got each individual component. You've got these, whatever they are, docking ports, these little things. They're actually modeled, and here, good example, the phaser strips are actually physically modeled. They're actually three-dimensional. They're not just a texture on the surface of the ship. Things like that. Even the navigation lights here, which I haven't hard pointed at all on this yet. They're actually 3D modeled. They're not just a painted texture, which stuff like that's irrelevant because when we add a navigation light, we're just going to plop it right on top of that, so you won't even see that part of the model. But we've added some up here, right there, as you can see. So thanks for watching the tutorials, and like I said in the forums, I didn't intend for these tutorials to be this comprehensive and certainly not this long, but once I got started, everything just kind of flowed, so it was only natural just to continue right on through and cover as much material as possible. Okay, so thanks again, and we'll see you out there.
Don't babble.
Babble, sir? I'm not aware that I ever babble, sir.
That is enough, damn it!